Hi, welcome to Ketobiography. I'm one of your hosts, Robyn Dobbins. At Ketobiography, Natalie Champ and I share inspiring stories of healing. We illuminate personal journeys that demonstrate the life-changing power of the ketogenic lifestyle, empowering our listeners with wisdom while building a thriving community. Hey, Natalie, tell us about our guest today.
Hi, Robyn. Today we are joined by Brett Smith. Robyn and I first met Brett back in October while volunteering at Metabolic Revolution. We were instantly struck by his passion for helping others to reclaim their health. After reversing his chronic conditions and losing 115 pounds in 9 months, Brett has made it his mission to share what he's learned. He has recently become Vice President of Business Development at Toward Health, working alongside Dr. Tro Kalajian to bring effective lifestyle-based solutions to patients, providers, and employers nationwide. Hi, Brett. Thanks so much for joining us. We are more than honored to have you here today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's my honor to be here, and you just direct me with where you want me to go.
Well, I hope we did you justice in the introduction. I think that we just turn it over to you. You tell the story that you want folks to hear today.
Okay. Well, I come out of, you could say, well, I'm 62 years old, and and I I actually probably look younger now than I did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I probably looked like you'd say, oh, Brett could be pushing 70. But I came out professionally of the health insurance and then different verticals inside of there, which most of the last 20 years was kind of in the corporate wellness and disease management worlds. So I ran sales and marketing for, as you mentioned, I'm VP Business Development at Toward Health, and we sell metabolic health corporate solutions, and we also have a concierge direct primary care individual. So individuals can go to Toward Health, and my job is to bring employers, because that's my background. I used to call on, as for 10 years I was, an insurance broker way back in kind of most of the 90s. And I would help companies put their employee benefits package together. Before that, I worked for 3 different health insurance companies, Cigna, which is still one of the biggest and oldest ones out there. I worked for Humana, who's out of group, but still has a thriving Medicare business. And I worked for John Hancock, who's out of the group health world, not too long after I left them. But anyhow, so in my corporate wellness journey, interestingly enough, I had to become a certified health coach, and I keep my book always kind of right by my feet here. So this is a course that was created by Dr. Raymond Gavry, who was the chief medical officer and founder of my first 10 years in the corporate wellness world. And he taught this course at UW Wisconsin Milwaukee, and it's a 3-credit class. And if you passed everything in this book, you became a certified coach based on the organization that created that certification. And so at my old company, all of our coaches started off as RNs, and I had to be certified only because when you're dealing in the large group employee benefits world, the brokers and consultants require you usually to fill out what's called an RFP, a request for proposal. And that they could take as long as 3 hours or 3 days of nonstop work to answer 300-400 questions in these things. And I couldn't take our nurses off of the line and have them not coaching to do 10 hours of coaching questions. So I had to be certified like them so I could answer with the authority of a coach and the knowledge. And so people didn't have to always read what I wrote to proof it, so we could get it out the door. And there were a lot of all-nighters with that. And I never got really obese. I mean, I had a BMI of over 30 when I was in that position. And, the guys in the company all had weight issues. The doctor, the president, myself, but I was more the face of the company because I was out traveling the country and doing the finalist presentations and pressing the flesh with the brokers and consultant community. And so anyhow, the interesting thing is, I needed to lose weight in our coaching program, which was all predicated on kind of the calorie in, calorie out model, the low fat model, where everybody in healthcare, for the most part, dietitians, whatever, had been for the last 100 years, and especially the last 60 years since the war on fat started in 1977. But anyhow, so fast forward, I left that industry in 2014, and I didn't go back into insurance, group health insurance or anything, mainly because I'm like, in the last 10 years, nothing works to fix everybody. The first health plans I sold for Cigna had a $35 single rate and $130 full family rate with the employee and as many wife and kids as or husband and kids as there were. And, you look at where we're at right now, just 10 to 20 times those amounts in one professional career time. And I'm just like, well, we're going to have nationalized healthcare really soon because we can't sustain all of this. And being in my kind of earlier 50s at the time, I'm just like, well, I don't want to be 58 and have to go and reinvent myself because there's no more health insurance world to be a part of. So I left and I went and kind of did other things. And in some of those things, I gained even more weight. And, I got up, I'm 6'3", and I got up to 335 pounds. I graduated college 167 pounds as an athlete, as a tennis player. And so obviously there's quite a delta between 335. It's almost like I doubled. I pretty much did double. I never put that into context like that before until I just said this. But I doubled my college graduating weight at that point. And so at 2018, and they always say a picture is worth 1,000. So when we were all in DC and I kind of let off what we call the parade of proof, I had my before and after of what happened with me when I lost 115 pounds. And the reason I show this, and we'll get into that, I reversed also heart disease, metabolic syndrome, arthritis, tinnitus, benign prostatic hyperplasia, and more. But what happened is that I'm third of 4 kids, and my sister's 60th birthday party, and this was again 7 years ago. It'll be 7 years soon, and in October. And at her birthday party, the next day was my before picture. Right after that birthday party. And it was the first time, because I noticed my younger brother lost like 35 pounds in the 4 months since I had seen him. And I'm like, what happened to you? And he's like, oh, I've been doing this low carb keto thing. And it really struck me because we were in a restaurant, so I wasn't going to try to deep dive into this, everybody with their spouses at the table. But I'm just like, what the hell is keto and low carb? I spent 10 years in the corporate wellness. I thought I understood every diet that was out there. And so anyhow, I wound up going to Chicago the next day to play in a national platform tennis tournament with a college buddy of mine who was on my college tennis team. And I went from 2 years earlier in the 50 and overs, finishing 5th in the nation with that same doubles partner, to where now 2 years later, I'm just completely broke down. I'm that much heavier. I can't move, and I'm thoroughly disgusted with myself. And I come home back to Milwaukee area, and I reach out to my brother, go, send me what you've got on this keto thing. I've never heard of it. And I figured it had to be some fad thing, but I go, if it worked for him, I'll look into it. And so I looked into it, and as I started paying attention to it, I started seeing things that my past training and life, selling disease management, corporate wellness programs, I go, oh my God, they're talking about saturated fat is healthy. You don't have to worry about LDL cholesterol. I mean, as I'm starting to dig into all these different things on keto, and I'm just like, my brother's going to be a skinny guy in a casket. I got to save his life. And the real cool thing about our corporate wellness programs, my 10 years there, is we had predictive modeling algorithms for 40 different disease states, 13 of them cancers. And so I could crack open the predictive modeling algorithm and show people, here's how we took the meta-analysis of this disease state, and then we did regression analysis, so we understand how each individual part of is weighted, so that when science changes, we can change each thing on the fly and still have a active predictive modeling algorithm. So I spent, a year in pharma. I had some blockbuster drugs that I represented. So, I had some science and background and things like this. So I'm just like, well, I'm going to go into PubMed and find all the definitive studies that show that he's being silly following this fad diet. And that was about 60 hours of November and December 2018. And in the first 30 hours, I really kind of figured out, he kind of figured this out somehow, or what he fell into. There's more credence and data, because actually the ketogenic diet, low carb diet, is the most studied diet in the scientific space. There's nothing even remotely close to it. Nobody will just, up until recently, connect the dots on everything. And so I decided, by December 1, I started taking the garbage carbs out of my life. And I decided on 1/1, I'm going to go all in. And 9 months later was the after picture, the 100. Sometimes I can still get a little emotional talking about it, because it's like, wow. So anyhow, so I didn't, as I was in that 9-month journey, about 3 months in, 2.5 months in, I was like, 6 weeks in, I'm down 38 pounds. And I'm just like, I could never lose weight and sustain it but like this effortlessly in the past. And I'm just like, and I had found Virta Health. Are you guys familiar with who Virta Health is? And part of my epiphany, sometimes this gets me emotional too. You might have this book as well, written by Dr. Sarah Hallberg, who became the chief medical officer there. But in that first 30-hour deep dive, I came across her YouTube video from the TED Talk she gave, saying in order to reverse diabetes, you have to ignore the guidelines. And I watched it. It's about a 22-minute video. I watched it back to back 4 straight times. I just spent 2 hours. And it blew my mind. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but I kind of like, this is why I got emotional on stage, because her poster was up on the stage. And I knew her and Nina were buddies and everything. And, and so it just became, and we'll get to that later, but it became very emotional. But I had kind of adopted her as like my niece, my kid sister, or whatever, because I watched everything over the rest of her life, which she passed away from cancer. I'm sorry. Anyhow, so she was a huge part of my epiphany. I'm like, I shouldn't have been in the disease management business. All we do is watch people get managed into more disease, more drugs. We should be in a disease reversal. And so anyhow, I'm now there, with Toward Health. We're a metabolic health disease reversal company, and we've helped thousands of people stop having diabetes, hypertension, and dozens of other supposed chronic conditions while also losing incredible amounts of weight and feeling better. And so I decided with that first 38-pound weight loss in February of 2019 that I was going to have to go back into the industry. I'd been out since 2014. And I go, wow, everybody must be aware of this already. And as I started reaching out to my old contacts, it was like everybody was deer in the headlights. I could tell nobody understood a thing about what I was saying. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been out of the industry for over 4 years now. And I've leapfrogged everybody in just like 2 months of paying attention to stuff and 2 months of applying it. And so I wound up getting a job with a kidney disease management company by the name of Renologic. And the guy that became the VP of sales and marketing, I used to compete against because we were running sales and marketing for competing wellness companies. And we'd fly all over the country and make presentations at the same company, one after the other, and things like this, finalist presentations. Anyhow, so they hired me because I understood ketosis and I understood Virta, and they looked at Virta as a potential competitors of theirs, even though they weren't at all. And after 2 years, really wound up leaving because they weren't looking to get in and use this kind of protocol as I was hoping. And I'm like, God, we need to make the whole world aware of this. Too long of a story on all of that. But anyhow, so so for almost 2 years, good 1.5 years plus, I was selling kidney disease management programs where we knew you could reverse chronic kidney disease, and cost containment things. We could take a $2 million dialysis claim and turn it into a $200,000 claim. So those were the things that is their claim to fame. And so when I interviewed for that position and I got it, and literally, I called Jim up out of the blue, the guy who hired me, who I used to compete against, and I'm just like, I see you guys are looking for people at Renologic. Talk to me about it. And I explained to him what was going on with me at the moment. And within 72 hours, I had an offer because he knew I could sell. He knew I knew wellness and all of this. And I wound up doing an e-doc signing of my contract with them in an office, not this office, but like this office. And I got up and I started pacing back and forth because I was all amped up because I'm like, oh my God, I get to come and change the whole world and make all of the brokers and the employers and help wake up the world to what's going on with all of this. And it hit me at that very moment that, again, Sarah turned me on to Virta Health, and the founder of Virta Health is a billionaire, and he became a billionaire selling a Zillow-like company to Zillow. And he won 7 years earlier on his journey when he hit 50, the 50 and over Ironman big kahuna thing in Hawaii. So it was like the fittest 50-year-old, probably fitter than 98% of all Division I NCAA athletes. And he comes back to San Francisco from winning that and finds out he's got a 5.6 A1Cs, for all practical purposes, a type 2 diabetic. He goes, how can this be? I'm the fittest guy in the world. And when I was celebrating, going back and forth, pacing in my office, I was saying to myself, and I caught myself thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be thin again in another 4, 5, 6, 7 months. And I'm not on any medications for blood pressure or diabetes or anything. And I was about to say, I'm going to be bulletproof. And then it hit me. I go, being thin doesn't mean that you're bulletproof, because this guy was a type 2 diabetic and one of the best triathletes in the world. And then I remembered when I went to college, my roommate was on the cross-country team in the dorms, and he had the book, which was the best-selling book, The Complete Book of Running by Fix. I think it's Jim Fix. I might be, every now and then I screw up his name. But I remember 4 years out of college, he's in his early 50s looking like a Greek god Adonis, and on a 5K run, he dies of a heart attack. So those two things hit me right as I was thinking bulletproof. And so that's when I said, okay, well, when I started, 10 years ago in the corporate wellness world, 14 years ago, whatever it was, they eventually had me go get a CT heart scan so that I could kind of live. If somebody was in our predictive modeling algorithms determined to be high risk, we would recommend that their doctor send them for a CT to confirm whether they have the disease or not, and then put them on treatment protocol. So they had me go get one at 45 years old, and I had zero plaque. And so I just said to myself, I said, well, Brett, I can start celebrating and thinking bulletproof if I can go get another CT heart scan, because my blood pressure was always great. I was just fat. And all the problems that come with carrying a lot of weight, and for meniscus surgeries from being functionally fat for so long. So anyhow, I'll speed up and come in for a landing here. But that's when I found out, within 2 days, I got another CT heart scan. Within 2 more days, I got the results. And Mr. Smith, you have a calcium score of 268. 3 of my 4 arteries had plaque. One only had a 40 score, pretty minimal. 0 to was under 100 is considered low risk. 100 to 400 is considered intermediate risk. Over 400 is considered high risk. And I was just kind of stunned when they called and told me this. And I'm like, oh my God, the last 10 years I did the damage. And so then I took all of this refound desire to learn that this all created inside of me. And this is, I don't know if you've ever seen the Gallup Strengths Finder book. And there's all these different things that it came out in around 2000, and I got into this. Well, learner, there's 35 strengths that they've identified in the human population. And they say your signature are your 5 most dominant strengths, and work on your strengths, don't work on your weaknesses. Well, when I went to Renologic, they were using this as part of their corporate culture and scenario. And so I had to take this test now for the 3rd time, because I used it in a couple sales management positions I had run. And learner was always like my number 18 or 19 out of 35 strengths. The other 4 here were always top 5 in all of my things. And one thing got moved to 6 in learner because I became obsessed with learning. And so by the time I got there, it just, not just was I becoming the incredible shrinking man, I'm not even remotely the same person as far as how I think, how I process the world, my politics. There's nothing remotely the same, and it's all coming out of this. So anyhow, so I decided I need to jump in and figure out this heart disease thing. I realized that everything else that's kind of a metabolic disease wound up becoming fixed with the ketogenic, with nutritional ketosis, metabolic therapy. And I found, one of my early people that I studied heavily and taught me a lot, Ivor Cummings, out of Ireland. And he was president of the Irish Heart Awareness Foundation. And they came out with the movie called The Widowmaker to help people understand how important CT heart scans were for early diagnosis. And so I started paying attention to his podcast, and he had a guy on a couple of weeks later that I wound up selling a corporate wellness program to. He was on the committee at Wausau Papers here in Wisconsin, 2,000 employee group that I sold them their program. And his story is that 5 years before I sold him that program, he was at the Mayo Clinic and found out he had an 800 score calcium score. And the doctors told him, well, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to be dead in a couple of years. Go get divorced. One of the doctors went to college with him, knew he wasn't in an unhappy marriage. Move to the beach, sell surf wax, enjoy your last couple of years. Well, this guy had 2 PhDs, was the only guy in his class not to go to med school. But he rolled up his sleeves and he went 16,000 hours in the next 3-4 years into figuring all of this out. And he zeroed out his calcium score. And so I go, okay, here's a guy that did it. He's now my new best friend and mentor. And I stalked him every YouTube video that he's ever been interviewed on and everything. And finally found where he spelled out his protocol. And I turned it into a document and such, and wound up reversing my heart disease with the same protocol, realizing that nutritional ketosis is like so fundamental to this. And, you know, because when I heard him talking about it, and he said that, you know, he knew from his college hockey days and everything, and being, you know, a top hockey player, how important kind of being in ketosis was as an athlete and all of these things. And he knew that 40 years earlier. And so I'm like, well, geez, I've been doing the, you know, it's now, you know, April when I find this, and I'm like, well, I've been doing this for 4 months and it's not a problem. I can do this the rest of my life. And so anyhow, I'll just quick throw out here. I have now shared that document with a bunch of people, also including a friend of mine who's a cardiologist. In the summer that I lost, that year I lost all the weight, he had a heart attack, and he's 3 years younger than me. So he was 52 at the time. And he thought I was crazy because, like all doctors, they're trained to fear the word ketosis because they're only taught about end stage pancreatic disease for unmanaged type 1 diabetics, DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis. They're not taught that, oh, it's the state that every baby spends the whole 9 months in the womb. And until our food supply started changing in the 1920s and 30s, pretty much all of humanity had no choice. They pretty much lived most of the time in a mild form of ketosis. It's just called what our evolution was. And we can go down as much as you want to cover different food things through this. But so, yeah, so anybody who's watching this, if you reach out to me, my email address is brett@mymetaboliclife.com. And if you want to put in the show notes, that's great. If you email me within the day, maybe 2 if I'm really busy, I will email you a Word document, and then I've got one PowerPoint slide that goes with it for one of the presentations that you know, I took a screenshot of one of his slides, and it's just very great. So that's how I was able to do that. And that led also to eventually within 2-3 years, I realized, oh, all that ringing in my ears is gone. And all the arthritis from my 4 meniscus surgeries from trying to be an athlete, still playing tennis, paddle, and pickleball. I used to be functionally fat. Then I just became fat and not functional. And then I became mobile and the best player I had been in my whole life, actually, in any of those sports. So, so I'll cut the story off there and see what you guys want to hear more about or think about or deep dive into.
Well, I would like to say that I hope you share the document with Robyn and I, because I would love to see it.
Well, you'll have it tonight.
Oh my gosh, how fun. You have had quite the journey. And I would like to go back to the fact that you're 62, folks. I'm sorry, but I have talked to Brett many times. We've been FaceTime many times, met each other. I had no idea that you were 62. Not that that's old, but you do look very young. And
look at all the gray. Look at all the gray.
Oh, well, we all have it.
And the big bald spot when you get to
okay.
the right angle.
That's okay. But you look amazing. You know, your face is youthful, and you know, you can tell just by your energy that you just you're young at heart. Your spirit is young. And that's not something that I know for myself. When I was a chubba bubba, I did not have that life in me, that my sun was not shining, right? My spirit was dim. And I didn't know that until I started the same journey you did. So I want to ask you, so you've been doing this for 7 years. When you first—
It'll be 7 years come October.
Okay, so give or take. So what was your first— you said you started taking out garbage carbs, but how has it changed for you? How did you start maybe? And then how have you refined? Did you find out like, oh, that bothered me, I didn't know? Because I think that's been a lot of our journeys.
Yeah, and things still keep evolving. You know, I kind of just roughly estimate it because I understand what kind of time I put in this, and there's like a 3-year period of time that I just full-time researched things more the last 3 of the last 5 years. And I estimate I'm about 17,000 hours down the rabbit hole on all things related to this, but that includes understanding what happened with the pandemic and everything related to all of it. But anyhow, so yes, when I got so lucky.
He's holding up Dr. Hallberg's book for
Yeah.
those who are listening.
She and Ivor were like 2 of my very first people and to learn from Ivor. Oh my God. I mean, these are just YouTube videos, watching YouTube, and then came across Low Carb Down Under and their conferences, and then Low Carb Denver, and then started seeing who all these different players and people in the space are. And so at first I was just kind of thinking 30 net carbs, kind of the first week of doing this. And then I saw Dr. Eric Westman. And so a lot of the people who really influenced me on a number of elements of this are on my healthcare heroes on my Metabolic Life page. And so if I don't mention any of them, those are the people that made, you know, and there's another 50 way beyond that, but that all in time while I bow to everybody eventually. But when Eric Westman, who wound up spending time in Dr. Atkins' office like a month, and wound up writing A New Atkins for a New You in the early 2000s, he introduced me to the concept of medical strength keto, and that he pretty much guarantees results at 20 total carbs, not net carbs, a day. And so within the first 2-3 weeks, I completely said, makes 100% sense, and I want success. I got a lot of weight to lose. And at first I'm just thinking I'm just losing weight. We can present here, can't we? Or I can show something, because it's, like I said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here we go, 1 second. Here we go. So I'm going to click this, and I am going to click this, and share. So let's just see. There we go. So, so this is my coaching website that is now, I'm trying to do toward full time, and that's a side business per se. But, you know, so I've got my coaching kind of philosophy, testimonials, my story, understanding metabolism, understanding metabolic therapy. And then I've got 2 podcasts, one that I do called My Metabolic Life, which I have interviewed Natalie on. Come watch Natalie. And when I said that doctor friend of mine who had the heart attack that year, and he thought I was crazy in 2019, I wound up helping him figure out why he had his heart attack and how to reverse it. And now we do another podcast in there called The Metabochondriacs. And you can see that right here. And from here, you can click to go to both those podcast channels. But the reason I brought this up to answer that question as far as what's changed, and here's my heroes, but on the blog, I wrote an article this last August or so, and right here, it says, if you can count to 20 medical strength ketosis, 20 total carbs, your health goals are in reach. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if we go down to the very bottom, these are the meals that I ate most frequently in 2019 when I had this transformation. So, what you can see here is, some scrambled eggs, and I figured out some low carb bread type replacements. And one of the things I said back at originally that I kind of sandwiched and bageled my way to this weight loss, because this is a bagel. There's 4 carbs to that bagel instead of the 80 from the Panera bagel. Okay. And it only takes 5 minutes to make it, 22 minutes in the oven. I would make 6, 8 at a time. And there's a little bowl of a little granola, which are just pecans with walnuts, almonds. I don't do almonds anymore. Coconut oil, cinnamon, vanilla, and boom, you can bake it up. So this is surf and turf. So here's some salmon, some asparagus, and a piece of steak. Here's another a kielbasa sausage link, 2 cod fillets, and I take pork rinds and I pulverize them in the blender and season them, and I then put it in an air fry, and make a fish fry instead of a deep fried fish fry. Steak and fish, 4 fried eggs on 2 rolls, and the rolls can act like a hot dog bun, a brat bun, or an English muffin, and you toast them. And I got 4 eggs there. I got some berries and heavy cream. So you're seeing that, Brussels sprouts on that plate, on this plate, with, so any one of these meals, there's not more than 7 to 8 carbs in the picture.
We are definitely going to put this in the show notes so that people can link to this page and go through and read your story and look at some of your recipes for sure. I think that's awesome. One thing I kind of want to change back to, you mentioned very briefly that the gentleman who ran the Ironman had a insulin score, I think, or A1C, sorry, an A1C of 5.6.
Yeah.
So tell me when you started learning about insulin resistance.
Well, right then, that first 60-hour deep dive, November, December of 18, once you figure out what ketosis is and how it's used, you wind up finding out that everything on my poster right there, my 5 conditions, are 5 of 80 different conditions that are just insulin resistance run amok, manifesting into all of these different things. And it takes about 8 to 10 to 15 years, depending upon, everybody's different. They all have their own eating journeys and what got them and how sedentary and everything else goes into all of this. But insulin resistance is at the main cause of every one of these things. And if you don't get at it, it turns into psoriasis, it turns into eczema, it turns into heart disease, it turns into diabetes, it becomes, obesity and everything else, bipolar, schizophrenia, multiple sclerosis. And so the whole thing about all of this and why metabolic therapy works is it tackles the root cause of what is really the health problem, the epidemics that we have in most of all of the Western world. And even, China's, India, they're all suffering from all of this. I just want to throw one quick anecdote in there that when I said, for like 3 years, I was completely full time, kind of just 12 to 15 hours a day studying these things and going farther down rabbit holes, I realized there's more than just food that creates insulin resistance. The terrain, our environment. So there are some incredible books that I would heavily recommend people check out, because I've read 100 different books regarding all of this stuff. That's how you get to 17,000 hours. But The Body Electric is an incredible book written by Robert O. Becker, creator of the MRI machine. And understanding how our planet and the whole universe is just one big, huge electronic magnetic field. And when you become incredibly out of touch with it, you start suffering from a number of different conditions that are more almost physics related, because that's why grounding is so great, and getting your bare foot or sitting on the ground, sleeping on grounding sheets on your bed. We went to away from incandescent bulbs to LED bulbs. The blue light toxicity coming out of those bulbs are toxic to us. We are looking at each other through screens. We've got TVs. We've got these things going on, and it's all throwing blue light at us. So I have settings on my iPhone where you can take the blue light and strip it all out. People go, oh, you have like a yellow looking screen. I go, yeah, I don't allow blue light to come at me. You can wear blue blocking glasses when you're on TV after dinner or such, so that your body can wind down. So there's what's called quantum health. As I was searching for that word a couple minutes ago, having to do with how light, water, and magnetism all impacts our body, and how critical sunrise is, sunset, and getting a couple minutes of those things in your eyes as often as you can. And if you can be barefoot, if you're at a latitude that allows that, for a while. I know people who go out and do this in the snow, barefoot, in the morning. And anyhow, so then your whole circadian biology is huge with all of this. And then I wound up understanding what deuterium is, and hundreds of hours of what deuterium and how it destroys your mitochondria and actually breaks your mitochondria. And so basically cut out the processed foods, you cut out a lot of the, deuterium, but there's deuterium depleted water. There's all these different things that we can go into, but so it's more than just food, even though food is enough to probably fix most things for 70% of people. But I have a client where, and I know of other people that have had this, because it's not my idea. I learned this from other quantum health coaches out there, that if you have people heavy in the tech industry, and they wake up in the morning, they're probably sleeping next to their phone, charging 2 feet from their head, so they got all that negative EMF. They wake up, maybe look at their phone before they do anything else. Then they're doing emails. Then they, and it's Netflix and the computer and the iPad and the phone until they go to sleep, again, sleeping right next to this EMF. And the Wi-Fi in our homes, another negative EMF situation going on here. And these all create insulin resistance. So sometimes you've got to get people into you got to teach them about their circadian biology, because they can become incredibly insulin resistant by having improper sleep architecture and by being bombarded with EMFs and excessive blue light. And that's enough to not allow the diet to fix anything, and that their CGM is going to stay really high, because we're not getting at the other root causes beyond the food aspect of insulin resistance. So all of these things create insulin resistance. So before I kicked off the coaching business, I pushed it back a year, because I wanted to truly understand that aspect of things. Because if I only come in as a one-trick pony and I'm going to talk about your diet, and most people, 2/3 of people that have, 90% of us are, based on the best studies out there, say that are not metabolically healthy. And I would say 2/3 of that 90% have some form of food addiction spectrum, whether it's food addiction or sugar addiction or both. And we actually at Toward Health have a paper coming out in the next week and a half, in a peer-reviewed journal, like our 14th paper. I get to say ours now, Tro and team. And, you got to be able to understand all of these different things, because I became addicted to all of this stuff. And I get all my joy out of learning now.
Don't you think that once you start feeling good and you have your energy back, that it's sort of a natural progression to start learning about what else can I do? What else can I, our friend Stephen T, we know, walks outside barefoot in the winter in New Jersey. And, he goes on his walks, he runs, and people look at him like he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but it works for him. And he inspired me to I walk around now barefoot all the time, as much as I can. I'm not walking outside barefoot all the time, because I'm delicate and I don't want to step on things that hurt my feet. But I do think it is, I just think it's a natural progression that we start, you know, oh, let me get some sunshine in my eyes. We just start learning that some of these things are cortisol and, you know, and what brings it up, what brings it down. And so that is a really good point. And it's really smart to be able to talk to people about that, you know, during your health coaching.
And sometimes it's low-hanging fruit. If you know they're a heavy tech person and you just kind of start with, well, let's talk about your day. When do you wake up? What's the first thing you do? And have them walk me through all of this. You can start to see what's going on with them. And because many of us are emotional eaters and are emotionally attached to their chocolate or their bread or their pasta or whatever. And if you can figure out and help them with from the quantum and circadian health aspect right away, they can start seeing results without having to get medical strength ketosis 20 carb and under. And I'm not saying everybody needs to get to 20 carb or under, you know, and there's all different ways. And the thing that I didn't say with second half of that question you asked, as far as what's changed with me, I showed you this was the first year of how I ate. Once I got into understanding the deuterium and all of the other things that go on with our plant-based world, and that all processed food is plant-based, and then you start understanding everything else that can be a problem, and why I got the kidney stone when I was overdoing almonds and almond butter and things like this that first year. And that was a whole new experience in pain.
Just so everyone knows, he held up a book called Toxic Superfoods by Sally Norton.
Sally Norton, who's got a master's in public health. And she's awesome, and she's got a channel. And but you know, so the deeper you go, and as you really get into the whole quantum biology, the light, water, and magnetism aspect of all of this, I mean, you can say there's diet wars out there, right? You know, there's everything from the vegan side of things to the carnivore side of things. And each side thinks the other side's completely nuts and crazy, and everybody else in the world who doesn't understand this thinks that we're all whack jobs. But I don't have, there isn't one. You can be a vegan and a vegetarian and successfully apply metabolic therapy to what's going on. So you got to really figure out where a person's at right now, how metabolically broken they are. There's a number of easy things, and just their last lab test can tell us so much based on certain elements of all of this. And then you can have them check things and, you know, put a CGM on and start seeing how they react to different things. Because they and their spouse might react completely differently to the same food.
That's funny that you say that. I was going to ask you a question because I have a client now, and it's a partnership. So they often try to do the same things, but they're in very different paths on their journey. But one of the people is trying to help their high blood pressure and recently had a CAC done that was surprisingly high and unexpected. So, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I want to go back to your talk about heart disease and your own score. Did you see any change? Has it, because people say it can't change once it gets high, but I've been on several conferences that have shown otherwise. So I don't know if you fall in the category of someone who's been able to lower those numbers. And then also wanted to ask more about, like, what would you tell that person that has this high score? What should they do?
It's so appropriate of a question with other things going on with a good friend of mine right now too. So yeah, so I had a 268 score. One of the four main arteries was a 0, still a 0 as of last time checked. The one that had the least amount had a score of 40. And then one was like a 90, and the balance was the most blocked or the most plaque-ridden artery. And when I joined Renologic and that boss, Jim, that I told you about, where we used to be competing heads of sales at 2 different companies, he goes, Brett, we've got the best broker connections out of everybody in the sales force for you and me are going to go to Southern California for a week and hit up the brokers out there. I go, great. And one day he goes, well, I need you to drop me at this one place. I've got an appointment with a doctor who created a heart test. And right after I got my CAC score, I told Jim about it. He went and got one, and he's 6 years younger than me. And he had a score he wasn't happy with either. And in July, a couple months later, a month before we went to California, he came across at a health conference the pulse cardiac test. It's a blood test, and he did it, and he had an appointment scheduled to go meet the doctor who created this test. And so he said, Brett, you can either drop me off and go to a restaurant, or you can come in and learn about this test. I go, of course I want to come. And he goes, I knew you couldn't not want to come and learn about this. So I sat there for 45 minutes while Dr. Harrington, the creator of this test, explained Jim's results to him. And after 45 minutes, the doctor looks at me and goes, well, you've been just sitting there very quietly. I go, I'm just listening. This is his call. This is his report. It's not mine. He goes, well, do you have any questions? I go, well, let me make sure I understand what you just said in 45 minutes here. You've got a venipuncture blood draw that quantifies soft plaque in the arteries, whereas the score, that CAC score we were just talking about, my 268, is only calcified plaque that shows up in those scans. But the dangerous plaque is the soft plaque that eventually becomes calcified plaque. But if there's calcified plaque, the fire is the soft plaque, and that's what's typically going to erupt to create the stroke if it's in our carotids, or become, the heart attack as it blocks off oxygen to the heart. And so I go, so you've got a test that quantifies the soft plaque, and you can show whether somebody's healing or whether their disease is progressing. And I said it that quick and easily, 30 seconds. He goes, that's a great elevator speech. I got to give this to my salespeople. And he goes, that's exactly right. And I go, do you have a phlebotomist here? He goes, do you want one of these? And Jim goes, yeah, Brett just had a calcium score of 268 in March, 5 months earlier. And Dr. Harrington's eyebrows go up, and I go, yeah, I know what it means. I understand it. And I go, but I found a guy in a protocol. I found somebody who's reversed this out, and I'm planning in the near future to be disease-free to a degree. And he, again, raised his eyebrows at me because this was new news to him at that moment. So I get a blood draw, and 2 weeks later, because he went on a European vacation, he comes back, and we do a Zoom call with Jim, me, and him again. I go, Jim, you can listen to my results because I listen to your results. And the doctor goes, well, Brett, you already knew from your calcium score that you had the disease, and this confirms that you did. And he goes, I really wish we would have had one of these back in January before you lost your 100, because this is the month I had lost 115 pounds. I hit that benchmark, 46 waist to 34 waist. And I know. And he goes, because I really would have loved to have a baseline on you before you did all of this. But even right now, you have a heart age of a healthy 83-year-old. That's the amount of soft plaque I had in my arteries at that time. And so they give you your age and everything. He goes, but good news, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because I can tell by how these different markers are happening, you're in major healing. You're not in disease progression, you're healing. So I'm like, yeah, it's, I've been on the protocol for a few months now and everything. So I'm planning on, so a year later, I do a year-over-year test with this, and 2 weeks before I go get another CT heart scan. And my buddy who does the podcast with me, Dr. Ryan Cooley, the cardiologist, he's on the call, and I had gotten him to do his first test and my year-over-year results. So Dr. Harrington says, well, Dr. Cooley, we're going to first do Brett's because it'll help you learn more by seeing his year-over-year results, and then we'll get into your results. And Dr. Harrington turns to me and goes, Brett, what in God's name have you been doing? I go, well, last year you told me I was healing. I said I had protocol. He goes, you wiped out 85% of the soft plaque out of your arteries in the last year. And so should you ever want, we can go through my test results and explain the two different scores. And in that 1 year, the heart age, I went from having the heart of a or of an 83-year-old to a heart of a 65-year-old. And then 6 months later, I'm at a 58-year-old. And so I get back to my, I'm closing in on my chronological age and trying to now get to have the heart of a 40-year-old is, where things are going. Unfortunately, our COVID response, not ours, our government's COVID response wound up killing the company before it could really take hold. Doctors weren't seeing their own patients face to face. They're not seeing of our 35-person sales force. I covered Wisconsin, and it kind of died on the vine spring, summer of 2020. And so, but after getting those results and hearing that 85%, and then Dr. Cooley and I were on a pickleball court the next day because he's a tennis and pickle and paddle guy like myself. And I'm just like, what'd you think of that thing? He goes, none of us in cardiology are aware of any of these things that they're measuring and what this does and all of this stuff. He goes, it's so freaking cool. I called up the company the next day, and within, again, 48 hours, I became the heart pulse cardiac sales rep in Wisconsin because I realized how big of a thing this was. There's more to that whole story. So when I did that repeat CT heart scan, the artery, so I had one that was a 0, one that was a 40. The one that was a 40 was now a 0 also. So I had now 2 zeros. The 2 that had the most plaque both went up a couple of points, less than the 40 that I lost from that one cleaning out. But the theory in this world is that if you can be less than a 15% plaque progression, you're ahead of the curve if you're under 15. Some people are able to get to zero, to zero it out or keep regressing, less plaque. And I believe that the nutritional ketosis isn't, because when you heard me say all the different things that the MS, the diabetes, the bipolar, it's how our body, it's our native metabolic state and physiologic state. There are no such thing as keto foods. This is a physiologic state that by watching what we're eating and paying attention, we can put our body into this physiologic state. It just happens to be where we heal the best, where all of these things that we think are chronic conditions kind of get reversed, or if you want to use a stronger word, cured. But just kind of like an alcoholic, and hi, my name's Brett, I'm a sugar addict and I'm a food addict and I'm a stress eater. But just like an alcoholic, if I, started eating the junk I used to eat when I put on the 115 pounds, it's all going to come back. And then the tinnitus ringing in the ears is going to come back, and the arthritis is going to come back, and the heart disease is going to start instead of healing, progress again. So it's all a matter of understanding what's going on and what you can do with all of that, all of this, beyond my heart guide. And it, the plan was, and why I took kind of 3 years to just kind of get into all this full time for a while, is I was planning on writing a book on metabolic therapy. And so the guide is the beginning, it is kind of the chapter on heart disease. There's a cancer one in there. There's a neurological chapter in there, and all of these different things. And so I'm happy to send you all of them. But with starting this business a year ago, and then I think you're aware of how crazy since we got back from Washington, D.C., my life was the last 6 months because, I was involved in 3 automobile accidents. I had 3 close friends with cancer. And just as you had said, there's a friend of mine that for 6 years, I've been trying to get him to get a CT heart scan, overweight, fantastic athlete, 6 years older than me, just finally got it done and has a 1552 score. 1,552. Twice of what Dr. Cooley had, around 800 something, when he had his heart attack at age 52. And now he's read my whole heart guide. He's watched all the videos that are inside of it. He's got his arms around this. And I talked to him after he met with the first cardiologist, and actually incredibly pleasing what that cardiologist had to say about a bunch of things. Some people are starting to catch up on some of this, and it's not just the fear of the word keto anymore. So yes, I eventually will start getting back to putting it in a book. I decided to try to put some of it into my blog on my website. But then right when we got back from Washington, D.C., you'll notice I still have 20 episodes on these 2 podcasts I haven't released in the last 6 months, just because life got really, really crazy. And now I'm really trying to get toward up and launched and everything in the corporate wellness world and through the brokerage community. So it's a heck of a roller coaster ride.
Trust me, I understand. That's well, I'm sure you know what was going on with me on the day of the rally. So I wasn't even able to be there, and it's been nonstop ever since. But Brett, I could continue talking to you for hours, but I actually have a hard out, and it has been an hour. So I know we can find you at Toward Health, and I know we can find you at
My Metabolic Life.
My Metabolic Life. But is there anywhere else I can add on for people to find you?
If you want, I'll email you my face on, like, right on that page, right under those pictures. I've got a little Facebook that there's a My Metabolic Life Facebook. There's a My Metabolic Life X Twitter account. And, I have an Instagram, but I don't do anything on it. And really, so, but yeah, no, Brett at My Metabolic Life, if they want to reach out to me, somebody can just call me. 262-255-9545 is my cell phone. I got 2 clients because on a podcast, I gave out my phone number, and this woman from Canada, oh my God, he gave the number. I don't have, so she didn't have to try to figure out how to communicate with me.
You don't want to put any barriers in place between what you know and what people out there need to hear, because it's such an incredible message, and
it's so powerful.
It is. It's incredibly powerful, and I definitely would love to see the guide that you've put together, because it sounds like it can help a lot of people. So I will definitely help spread your message within.
Yeah, feel
my
free to share
community
whatever I
as well.
give you guys.
Yeah,
It's public domain to me. I just want people to know.
Yeah, I'm going to now write your phone number everywhere in red lipstick in every bathroom stall that I go into. Okay. So, and
There
I'll
you
say,
go.
you need a health coach. Here it is. I'm just kidding.
No, the doctors just need education is all.
I know they really do. Well, we ask one final question of our guest.
Yes.
And so here it goes. What key insight would you want to share that would help others write their keto biography?
Everything's a journey. No matter how bad the last 20 years are, doesn't have to be there tomorrow. Take a step, learn a couple things, take another step, learn a couple more things. You're going to fall down. You're going to have bad days. You're going to eat things that you shouldn't be doing it because stress or whatever is going to get at you. Dust yourself off, forgive yourself, and then teach others.
That's beautiful. That is a beautiful message. And we do love asking that question because every person has a different answer, and it's always so special. And I know that this
They all
has been
become puddles, right?
right. We do. We get all emotional because we
Oh,
want
God.
everyone to feel this good. Honestly, we really do. Brett, we love having you. We love that you're our friend, and I hope that we can have you back.
Whenever
once
you want.
whenever this
We
tour-
haven't even scratched the surface of all of it.
I feel like there's just so much more we could talk. Like I have like 10 more questions, so we definitely have to revisit this conversation.
Whenever
I
you
totally
want.
agree. I totally agree. Well, we love having you, and we
And
will
after I
have you
start
back.
publishing, Robyn, I'd love to interview you for the first time, and then bring Natalie back again too.
It's so fun.
It'd be an honor.
I gotta get life under control for a while.
Okay,
Yes,
I understand.
yes, it's been crazy for both of you. I totally understand. Thank you so much again. On behalf of Brett Smith, Robyn Dobbins, myself, Natalie Shamp, thank you for joining us on this episode of Keto Biography.